Hey, today I'm working on a Mossburg Model 930. They call it the Snow Goose. Pretty cool gun. It's really long. I think it holds maybe 14 shells, maybe more. I don't know. But it has a problem where it's it's not striking the firing pin. You can hear the click, but there's no indent on the shell. So I'm going to look into seeing what might be wrong. I suspect it's just not quite going into battery. The gun's been shot a lot and not clean, so I'm gonna first of all just go ahead and clean it and then do a test and see if the firing pin is being struck in the end. So here we go. It's kind of a unique gun to work on because of this really long magazine tube. It's quite a bit. I think it's about a 4.5 foot tube here. So you have to take special precautions when you remove this thing. So the first thing you do is to use a hex key here to remove this magazine clamp, and it's a 5/16 screw. There's one on each side. So we'll get those out of the way. These hex keys have a ball on the end of it, but I like to use if it's a really tight screw, I avoid using that because I don't want to damage the screw. So there we go. You can see there's a little indent in this magazine, and that's where I don't know if you can see that or not, but right in here is the indent, and that's where the magazine holder, the clamp, would rest inside that. And I guess they put an indent on it to keep this thing from walking around. So the next thing we're going to do is unscrew this magazine nut here. And this is where I have to be kind of careful because once this comes apart, the magazine is going to want to go. So I like to use a C-clamp with some rubber pads on it and come to the back here and just gently clamp the stock down right there. So it's just going to hold the gun and keep it from sliding around on the table. And so now I've got the gun fixed in place. I can go ahead and unscrew this nut here. I can hear the spring in there. It's wanting to come on out. So I've got to kind of control it. Just put your hand there and block it. It'll come out and strike you in the face if you're not careful. Now this is a pretty long spring here. I'm going to measure it, and I'm just curious exactly how long that thing is. We've got a tape measure here. I'm going to see how long this spring is. Wow, 150 centimeters. That's a good one. Now, what is that in feet? I don't really know. But anyway, I'm going to slide off this forearm here. And now I can remove the clamp from the gun. It's not going to go anywhere. And I can pull this away. See, I've got the breech open fully. There's another spring here. So the first thing I'm going to do is use a bore snake here. And I like to go from the breech side. And I'm going to also use some solvent on it. Remington Bore Bright is what this is called. It's pretty dirty in there. And hopefully that's the reason it's sometimes not firing. Because it has a linkage in it that if it's not fully, if the breech is not fully closed, it blocks the firing pin. So what I do, I like to step on the rope of the bore snake and just pull the barrel right up through it. You can have a lot more control that way. I'll run it through there one more time. believe there was something fouling the, maybe powder or something was fouling the breech and not allowing the shells to be fully seated. So I'm going to go ahead and, that looks a lot better. I'm going to go ahead and put this back together. Not doing a full cleaning, I just want to see about this one, see if this corrects this problem here. So I've got a little tip on how to put this spring back in. It's a pretty long spring and it's kind of difficult to manage. But I just use a tube. This one happens to be just fiberglass tube, and it's the spring fits over it nicely. Not a lot of play, but a little. So I can go ahead and compress the spring onto this tube, and then that didn't work too good. Let me try that again. So I'm going to compress the spring onto the tube. And then put the magazine tube in there. So now I've got the spring captured inside this magazine tube here. I'm going to go ahead and remove my guide rod and then carefully meter it into the other magazine tube. Oh man, I forgot to put this on. You always want to put that on first. So I'll first put this on. There we go. Wasn't able to get it fully seated, but I don't know why, but now it is. So now I'm going to go back to the spring issue again. Go ahead and got the spring on this tube. I'm going to go ahead and introduce it to this one. Pull out the guide there. So I've got I got all the spring inside this tube. I'm going to slowly release it into the other tube and then bring the two together, making sure I don't kink up the spring. And this is where the clamp is coming in handy. Otherwise the gun would want to shoot off the table under the pressure of the spring. There we go. We got the tube on there. I'm going to go ahead and put the clamp on. The clamp has a big ID and a small ID. The small ID is for the barrel. The larger ID is for the magazine tube. You don't want to fully tighten one without getting the other one started. And you want to tighten them equally. And sequentially, you don't want to like put a lot of torque on one and then flip over. Kind of want to generally, gradually apply it. That keeps the clamp from being cocked at an angle. Okay, I've got that snugged back up. And now I want to test the gun and see if it's if the firing pin is going to strike the primer. And the way I'm going to do it, I've got a spent shell here. If you don't happen to have a reloader, you can just get some tape. This is some painter's tape or masking tape. And this is a spent shell, but you can see it's got an indent on the primer. I'll just put some tape across it tightly. And I'm going to put a little oil on this this shell, just a touch, because it's probably expanded a little. I don't know what gun it was shot out of, but anyway, now I'm going to insert it into the gun. And close the breech. And safety's off, so I'm going to give it a fire here. I heard it click. So it was tight in the breech. And you can see it did puncture the tape, so it would have fired the shell if I had a live round in there. Now, I believe the shell fits tightly in this breech because it was fired out of another gun, an old over and under probably. But if I had the shell that was fired out of the gun, it might not have been so tight. But anyway, that's how you would test it. And so this gun appears to be working now. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video.